Let me give you a number, a very specific number. 65. That is the age most Americans expect to retire. And a person who retires at 65 today has, based on current actuarial data, a 50% probability of living past 85. That is a 20-year retirement, 20 years of rent, 20 years of groceries, utilities, car payments, 20 years of medical bills that Medicare does not fully cover. Specialist visits, dental, vision, prescription drugs that are not on the formulary. 20 years of a world that gets more expensive every single year, while your paycheck permanently stops arriving. I have spent 35 years watching that 20-year stretch eat people alive, and I mean that with every word I have. My name is Dr. Richard Ashford. I am an economist and a retirement planning specialist. I hold advanced degrees from 2 major research universities. I published papers on pension sustainability and Social Security solvency for 3 decades. I personally advised more than 2,000 Americans, factory workers, physicians, federal employees, small business owners, teachers, on how to build a retirement income structure that would last as long as they did. And I retired at 65 myself, on my own terms, with financial security intact, income structured, health managed. My retirement works because I followed my own rules. But here is what those 35 years of files, projections, and conversations across my desk truly taught me. There is one rule, one foundational rule about how money behaves the moment you stop working. Not a dozen habits, not a complicated system. One rule. And 80% of the people who sat across from me, intelligent, disciplined, hard-working people who had done the right things for decades, violated this rule, almost always without knowing it. And when the consequences arrived, they arrived the way a serious diagnosis arrives, quietly, and then all at once. I am not here to frighten you. I am sitting here because I have watched this story end badly too many times, and I do not want it to be your story. So stay with me, because what I am about to tell you is the conversation I wish every one of those clients had truly listened to. Here is what nobody tells you when you open that 401k statement and see a number that looks comfortable. That number exists in an accumulation environment. It was built in an accumulation environment. And you have spent 30 or 40 years learning, consciously or not, how accumulation works. You contribute. The market goes up, your balance grows. The market drops, you hold on. You keep your paycheck coming in. You ride out the volatility. You buy more at lower prices. You recover. That is accumulation logic. And during the working years, accumulation logic is exactly right. The moment you retire, the moment that paycheck stops, everything reverses. Now you are in the distribution phase. And the distribution phase plays by completely different rules. Rules that most people have never been taught, because the entire financial conversation around retirement focuses almost exclusively on how to save, not on what happens to those savings the morning after you stop adding to them. There is a phenomenon that I watched destroy retirement after retirement in my practice. I first identified it clearly after the 2001 recession. I then watched it play out with devastating precision in 2008 and again in 2020. I call it the sequence rule. The technical term is sequence of returns risk. What it means in plain language is this: when a major market downturn occurs in the early years of your retirement, while you are drawing income from a declining portfolio, the mathematical damage to your long-term financial security is permanent. Permanent in a way that has nothing to do with whether the market eventually recovers. During accumulation, a crash is painful but recoverable. You are still depositing money. When prices are low, your contributions buy more shares. When the market rebounds, those extra shares compound powerfully. During distribution, the opposite happens. When the market drops 35% in your first year of retirement and you need $45,000 to live on, you sell shares at the lowest point. Those shares leave your portfolio forever. When the market eventually recovers and those shares double in value, Someone else holds them. You sold them at the bottom to pay your electric bill. That damage is permanent. That is the sequence rule, and it is completely avoidable. But only if you build the right structure before the storm arrives. I kept a notebook in my practice for over 20 years. Every client who came back to me after retirement in serious financial trouble, I wrote down what went wrong, not the market conditions. What specific decision or misunderstanding had cracked the foundation of their plan? After 2 decades, that notebook told me something I did not fully expect. The overwhelming pattern was not recklessness, it was not gambling. It was ordinary, well-intentioned people who had built their financial lives entirely around accumulation logic, and then applied that same logic, unchanged and unexamined, to the distribution phase. Nobody had told them the rules change at retirement, and that oversight cost them everything. Now let me tell you about a man I will call Frank. Frank walks into my office in March of 2007. He is 62 years old. He is smiling. He has $490,000 in his 401k, a small defined benefit pension from his first employer, paying $1,100 a month, and a Social Security benefit he plans to claim immediately, at 62, the earliest possible age. He slides a yellow legal pad across my desk. His retirement plan, hand-drawn. I remember exactly how neat those columns were. Annual withdrawals, projected growth rates, a 15-year runway. He had run the numbers himself. He was clearly proud of the work. I looked at his plan. I saw it immediately. Frank was planning to withdraw $42,000 per year from his 401k. That is an 8.5% withdrawal rate on a $490,000 balance, more than double what decades of research suggests is sustainable over a 20 to 30-year retirement. He had claimed Social Security at 62, which would lock his monthly benefit at roughly 70% of what he would receive by waiting to his full retirement age of 66. And his entire model assumed a steady, uninterrupted 7% annual return. Every year, no bad years, no crash years, no disruption in sequence, just a smooth, reliable line upward on a legal pad. Here is what I knew that Frank did not. We were sitting in March of 2007, 11 months before the beginning of the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. The S&P 500 was about to lose 57% of its value over the following 18 months. Frank was about to walk directly into that collapse while drawing 8.5% per year from a portfolio that could not sustain it under any scenario, let alone a catastrophic one. I told him. I was as direct as I knew how to be. Frank, the withdrawal rate is dangerously high. Your Social Security timing is costing you a significant and permanent reduction in guaranteed lifetime income. And you have no buffer, no liquid reserve outside your portfolio to protect yourself if the market turns against you in the first years of your retirement. He listened carefully. He nodded. He said he understood. He thanked me for my time. He went home and did it his way. I called Frank in the spring of 2009. His portfolio had fallen from $490,000 to $261,000. Not because he had made bad investments, because the market had crashed, and he had continued withdrawing $42,000 per year throughout, selling shares at collapsing prices simply to cover his monthly expenses. By the time the S&P 500 fully recovered its losses in early 2013, Frank's portfolio had not recovered with it. The shares he had sold at the bottom in 2008 and 2009 were gone. They were never coming back to him. Someone else had held them through the recovery and captured every dollar of that rebound. Frank had sold them for groceries and utility bills. He ran out of investable assets at 73. 9 years into retirement. He was still healthy, still mentally sharp. He lived until he was 82. Those final 9 years, from 73 to 82, were not the retirement he had sketched on that yellow legal pad. His children stepped in. His expenses contracted to a level he would have found unimaginable sitting in my office in 2007 with his tidy columns and his confident smile. He did not gamble his money away. He was not foolish or reckless. He was a man who had worked hard for 40 years, built a meaningful savings balance, and simply did not understand the one rule that governs how money survives a 20-year retirement. He trusted a number, $490,000, without understanding the rule that determined how long that number would actually last. After 2008, I reviewed every client who had retired between 2004 and 2007. The pattern was consistent. The clients who had withdrawal rates below 4.5% kept cash reserves outside their portfolios and delayed Social Security by even 2 or 3 years had weathered the crash. They did not have to sell equities at depressed prices to pay their bills. They survived the sequence. The clients who had withdrawn aggressively and claimed Social Security early, almost uniformly by 2010, they were in serious difficulty. The Social Security piece deserves to be stated clearly, because I have seen this mistake made more times than I can count. Every year you delay claiming Social Security past 62, up to age 70. Your benefit grows by approximately 6 to 8% per year. That is a guaranteed, government-backed, inflation-adjusted lifetime income increase. Nothing the private market offers comes with that certainty. Nothing. For a person who lives into their mid-80s, statistically a 50% probability for a healthy 65-year-old today, the cumulative difference between claiming at 62 and waiting until 70 can exceed $200,000 in total lifetime income. That is $200,000 of guaranteed income, surrendered because someone could not wait 8 years. I have a line in that notebook I have never erased. People plan for their money running out. They never plan for themselves not running out. That is the pattern. That is what repeats across thousands of files and 35 years of practice. So here is what I want you to do. This is not financial advice. I am not your personal advisor, and your situation requires a plan tailored to your specific numbers and circumstances. But this is what I told my own children. This is what I would have put in Frank's hands if I could go back to that office in March of 2007. First, stress test your withdrawal rate against a bad sequence. Run a scenario where your portfolio drops 35% in your first 3 years of retirement while you are still drawing full income. What does your balance look like at year 5, year 10? If the result puts you in serious difficulty before your early 80s, your withdrawal structure has a structural flaw that must be corrected before you retire, not after. The 4% guideline was derived from historical data, assuming a 30-year retirement with a balanced portfolio. In today's environment, with lifespans routinely extending into the late 80s, lower projected real returns on bonds, and healthcare costs rising faster than general inflation, many specialists now argue that 3 to 3.5% represents a more realistic, sustainable withdrawal rate for someone retiring in their early 60s. Second, take Social Security seriously as a lifetime income decision, not a collection decision. Every year you delay past 62, up to age 70, your benefit grows. If you are married, the strategy becomes even more critical. The higher earner delaying as long as possible protects the surviving spouse with the larger benefit for the remainder of their life. This is one of the most powerful income optimization tools available to any American retiree, and it is among the most consistently misused. Third, build a distribution buffer before you retire. 12 to 24 months of living expenses held entirely in cash or short-term, low-risk instruments, completely outside your investment portfolio. This is not your emergency fund. This is your sequence of returns shield. If the market crashes in your first year of retirement, you do not sell a single share of equity at a depressed price to pay your bills. You live on the buffer. You give the portfolio time to recover. This one structural decision changes the entire risk profile of your retirement income plan. Fourth, model your healthcare costs honestly and specifically. The average American couple retiring at 65 today will spend somewhere between $315,000 and $400,000 in out-of-pocket healthcare expenses over the course of their retirement, costs Medicare does not fully cover. Prescription drugs that fall outside standard formularies. Dental care that Medicare ignores almost entirely. Vision. Specialist visits with high copays. Possible long-term care. If your retirement income plan does not have a deliberate, funded strategy for this number, your plan has a gap in it, and that gap compounds every year you live. I am 70 years old. My retirement is secure. I am not doing this because I need anything from you. I am doing this because I still carry that notebook, because I can still see Frank's face in the spring of 2009, the long silence before he said quietly, "I thought it would recover." It did recover. The market always eventually recovers. It just did not recover for Frank, because Frank was not there to hold it. He had already sold everything at the bottom just to keep the lights on. I have built a good life, a financially sound retirement. I take genuine pride in the clients who listened, the ones who restructured before the storm, who delayed Social Security, who built the buffer, who modeled the healthcare costs honestly. There are real people living with real dignity right now in their 70s and 80s because they understood the sequence rule before the market had a chance to test them. But there are also the names in my notebook, the people I could not reach, the people who heard what I said and chose to trust the number in their statement over the rule that governed it. And I have carried those names for a long time. Every person who walks away from this conversation and actually does something, who restructures the withdrawal rate, builds the buffer, delays the claim, fills the healthcare gap, that is one less name in the notebook, one less face in the archive I carry. I have been carrying enough of those faces for 35 years. I do not want yours to be next.